Quiz time. Do you know when the income tax was first introduced in the United States? I'll give you a hint. President Lincoln imposed the first federal income tax by signing the Revenue Act to help fund the Union during the Civil War. The answer is coming in just a moment, along with some other facts about taxes, so stick around. My name is Spencer Ford, CEO and Wealth Advisor with Conservative Financial Solutions, also a certified financial planning professional. And in 1861, President Lincoln signed the Revenue Act to help fund the Union during the Civil War. The income tax was actually later declared unconstitutional by the Supreme Court in 1895, and wouldn't it have been nice if it stayed that way? But taxes came back in a vengeance when the 16th Amendment was ratified in 1913, and thus starts our tax journey. And in 1913, the top marginal income tax bracket was 7%. And I don't know if you remember this or not, but a couple of election cycles ago, there were some politicians running around about how you should be able to file your taxes on an index card. And it used to be that simple. Here it is. This is your tax return in 1913. Didn't matter if you were Joe Schmo or John D. Rockefeller. It's a one-pager. That's it. In fact, all the instructions for the tax code in order for you to fill this out were only 4 pages long. But the problem is, it didn't take politicians very long to realize, hey, we can change these numbers. And shortly after 1913, we joined World War I, and wars are really expensive. Tax rates had to go up, and they actually peaked in 1918 with a top marginal income tax bracket of 77%. So in 5 short years, we increased the top bracket by a multitude of 10. Now, once the war was over, we saw enormous economic expansion called the Roaring Twenties, and tax rates were able to be aggressively brought down. But unfortunately, things got out of hand. People really weren't manning the wheel, and we ended up with the Great Depression. We ended up with the New Deal and the start of entitlement programs like Social Security, which was enacted in 1935. And we have to pay for stuff like that. So we saw taxes start to rise again. And then a few short years later, after the attack on Pearl Harbor, we joined another war. That was World War II. And wars are really expensive. And in 1945, there you have it, the top marginal income tax bracket was 94%. And you know what we did a lot during World War II? Deficit spending. And I'm not arguing against that. If you're dumb enough to attack us, I'm fine with you having to deal with the full weight of the United States. Still, like I said, wars are really expensive, and we did a lot of spending. In fact, in 1945, that was the first time that debt to gross domestic product, or GDP, went above 100%. So that was it actually peaked at 114%. In short, it was the first time that the United States had more debt than the annual amount of income produced by goods and services inside of the country. And look how long it took to get tax rates under control from that point in time, still at a top marginal bracket of 69% in 1981. And after 66 years, in 2014, we surpassed that debt to GDP barrier again and currently sit at a debt to GDP ratio of 124%. Now, look at where tax rates are. Does something seem off to you here? The debt to GDP ratio in 1945 was 114%. We now have debt to GDP of 124%, and tax rates are down here. We have record high spending, record high expenses, record high debt, and historically low brackets. It reminds me of the song, "One of these things is not like the other." And since 1988, right here, we've basically just been bickering over a few percentage points in terms of tax brackets. Now, if we look at the average top income tax bracket since 1913, we just take all this volatility and we were to average it out, that average comes out to 57%. We're at 37% right now. What do you think is more likely? Our government gets spending under control, or they start taxing us more? We know taxes are going up. The current tax law that we're under expires at the end of 2025, and many Americans will see their top marginal bracket jump by at least 3%. But do you really believe that's the end of the story? Do you think 3% is going to cut it? We've already seen that taxes have been higher in the past. What would happen if we got back to the average of 57%? I mean, could you imagine your top marginal income tax bracket going up 20%? It's hard to look at all the spending that's taking place, the federal debt sitting at $31.4 trillion and convince yourself that it couldn't happen. But what if your taxes just went up 10%? Beyond that, what if your taxes went up and you were already retired? The problem here is your pre-tax retirement accounts. You have a silent partner when it comes to those pre-tax retirement accounts. Now, your name is on the statement, but every time you go to take money out, the IRS is going to have their hand out looking for their share. And what happens when the IRS says that their current share isn't enough? So let's assume you have a $100,000 IRA, okay? This represents your $100,000 IRA. And currently, right here, Uncle Sam says, we own 20% of that, you own 80% of that. But like I said, what happens when Uncle Sam wakes up one day, the IRS wakes up one day and says, you know what, actually, we're gonna need 30% now. And so they take another 10% from you. You just lost 10% of your investment portfolio. It wasn't due to bad market performance. It wasn't due to bad investing. It wasn't due to a bad financial decision. It was all because the government decided they needed more of your money to waste. And that can dramatically impact your family's retirement plan. When you're retired, you're much more sensitive to tax law changes because you have less flexibility. Going back to work to make up for what the government takes away isn't really an option most families want to entertain. Now is the time to do your tax planning, not later, right now. Be sure to work with a financial advisor that is discussing these issues with you. I know I've been a broken record on taxes lately, but that's just because I see the opportunity of time ticking away for people who aren't taking advantage of the tax rates that we're currently in right now. And I just don't want people to miss the opportunity, frankly, because I don't care how you spend your money, you do a better job than the federal government, so I'm just interested in keeping it as much of it in your hands as we possibly can. My name is Spencer Ford, CEO and Wealth Advisor with Conservative Financial Solutions. And remember, conservative beliefs, conservative values, conservative financial solutions, and we'll see you in the next one.